Welcome back, homeschool friends. We are entering Unit 5 of the 6 steps on how to plan a homeschool for kids with special needs. And in Unit 5, we're going to be talking about how do we juggle all of these roles that we play in order to have a successful homeschool. In a recent Facebook group post, one mom said, so what's the difference, or what's my role between being a parent and a teacher? And I thought that was an excellent question, because I think this mom is looking at how her role is changing and how to make her homeschool actually work. The answer to that in almost every situation is structure. And a lot of people don't like the word structure. They think it means discipline or punishment. And I think of it slightly differently. Structure to me is kind of like a container that you put things in to hold them all together. Kind of like if you're going to bake a cake, you don't put the flour and the sugar and the eggs and the oil on the counter. They would flow all over and make a huge mess. We put them in a mixing bowl and then we mix them together. Or another common analogy is a sandbox. If you're making a sandbox for your kids, you don't just bring in a truckload of sand and dump it in your yard. The sand goes everywhere, and your kids really don't have much to play with anymore because the sand is all spread out. So you put it in a container. I've seen turtle containers with a lid that actually closes it off when you're not playing in it. But a box made out of wooden planks works just as well to hold the sand in, give it structure so that kids can actually play. So think about that as we're talking about juggling multiple skills. How am I going to add structure? How am I going to build that container so that my kids can be successful, I can be successful, and I can juggle it all much more easily? So we're going to break that down a little bit. In this video, I'm going to talk about structuring your time and your activities. In the next lessons, we're going to be talking about structuring your space, structuring your household management skills, and then in your learning plan success kit, as part of this unit is also juggling or structuring behavior. That's really important. If you have a kid that has any kind of special needs that manifests in behaviors that you're trying to manage a little better so that everybody gets along easier and your household flows easier. In our course, I'm breaking that down. I'm going to separate that because I want to go in a little more detail on how you do preventive management and how you set up behavior management tools for your child to be successful. And I think you'll be surprised at what that looks like. But in this video, we're going to talk about managing or structuring your time and activities. And the easiest way to do that is to create a routine. I'm going to share my screen here so you can see my slides. There we go. So becoming a master juggler starts with structure. We want to structure our time and our space. And I found for me, a routine works way better than a schedule. And I found that being more flexible on how we use our space and kind of planning what activities are going to happen in each space makes it a lot easier for me to manage behaviors in the long run. All right, so a routine is different than a schedule. A routine sets the sequence of activities and allows flexibility to adjust the time in doing each activity. So some days your math lesson may go longer because it's more fun, it's more hands-on, and you're building a concept and you want to do more playing and talking through what you're doing. Whereas other days it might just be a quick 5 to 10 minute practice day. So a routine sets the sequence of activities. I usually plan my routine so that I start the day with getting up, getting ready, having breakfast, all that beginning morning stuff. But almost always, I can't think of a year when it hasn't gone this way. We have a morning meeting of some kind. When they're really little, it's kind of a fun time where we do some wordplay and poems and laugh, and we might talk about the weather. It not quite the same thing as a circle time in a preschool or kindergarten. It's a lot less formal, but we're together as a family. We're getting the day off as a family, and that gives me the chance to talk to my kids about what's going to happen in the day, because a lot of our kids with special needs need to know ahead of time what's going to happen, because anything that surprises them may set them off. So I found a morning meeting helps me to prevent any of those surprises that are going to throw my kid for a loop and send them off into some kind of a meltdown. So a morning meeting to me is really important. I've also found that the younger they are, the shorter the increments of time for each activity. I keep direct teaching time no more than 15 minutes at a time, and usually shorter than that. And then free play time longer, but I structure the activities, I structure the play things available to them so that they're practicing learning and playing. They think they're playing. I've got it set up where they're working on some kind of a skill that's in our objective. I also switch off and alternate directed activities with free play choice time, back and forth. That way, during the free play choice time, I can be observing and letting them play, and I can get some of my tasks done and set up and prepare for the next little mini lesson. Alternating has worked very nice for me. Plus, it gives them plenty of free play time. In my routine, I also program when we're going out so that that stays in our routine. Now, I've had years where we've had therapy sessions and we have to leave the house at a time that doesn't typically sit in our normal routine. But I still plan it into the routine and tell my kids about it in the morning meeting. Now, some of you may need even more structure. And the more components you add to your routine, the more structure you have and the harder to maintain. But some of our kids really do need more structure. So a schedule blocks out those activities just like a routine, but sticks them in time periods. That way, you are a lot more regimented, almost like a school, that in these 15 minutes, we're going to do this. Then in this 15 minutes, we're going to do this. As the kids get older, I usually block it out in 20 minutes to half hour blocks. And if we get done early, then they can play. But the more you add a time frame to your schedule or your routine, you've got more structure, but you also have more chance of getting done early and your kids having down free play time, but then you've got to rally them back around to the next task. Where a routine sets the sequence of activities, you just run through your routine and your free play is set at the kind of at the ends of those, like the end of the morning, the end of the afternoon, so that they get lots of free play time. Remember, adding time is actually increasing the amount of structure. Because I like a relaxed homeschool approach, I tend to prefer a routine over a schedule. But honestly, that really depends on, first of all, your inclinations and how you prefer things. And secondly, what your children need as far as the structure of their day. All right, I want to talk about the teaching of basic skills versus content. I usually keep the teaching of basic skills individual. And while I'm working one-on-one with a kid, the others are working on some kind of a task. Now, if they're young, they're working on a play task. And I teach one, and then I call the next one over. And they just go back and forth from playing to coming with me. I start them when they're actually pretty young because I want to build that following directions and compliance. So they come and sit on my lap and we do something together and we talk and we laugh, and it's a touching, it's a one-on-one, and it's pleasant and happy. And if any time they get fussy or they are not wanting to do what I have for them to do, then their teaching time is done. And they actually can go back to playing, but I make being with me a reward time. So that one-on-one attention is super special. And if we just can't do school, it's not joyful, then we're not learning today. We're just not in a mood to learn. And trust me, it changes very quickly. It sounds like it would be counterintuitive, and that if you dismiss them and give them a reward for not doing school, if you start when they're young enough, that actually becomes the joy part of doing learning. And I'm not talking about sitting down and doing worksheets and workbooks for hours on end. I'm talking about 5 to 10 minutes one-on-one time with mom, coloring, talking about how to sound out about 5 words, making it fun, quick, and joyful. Teaching content subjects is something that's a shared knowledge that all of us are going to have. It's different than a skill where we're building up something we are able to do. Content subjects are things that we know, and we want some shared culture in our family. And so if your kids have already been in school and they're used to grade level subjects, and especially if they're spread out in ages, you may just need to keep that. But because my kids were closer in age, they never were in school. They were always used to doing a homeschool style of learning. We integrated social studies, science, Bible, health, cooking, 4-H. They each had their own projects, but we had a similar approach in time that we worked on our projects. So content subjects, we always did together. That saved me a ton of prepping time. And they didn't just have to read and answer questions. We actually did more learning and more projects and more discussing, and got to a higher level of thinking than I could if they were in individual programs or curriculums or textbooks. So structure your time and your space. It doesn't matter if it matches mine. It doesn't matter if it's different than anybody else's. Make it your own, make it work for you in your situation. And it will make it easier for you to teach each of the different skills and subject areas. Now, next, we're going to be talking about how to structure your space. So I want to tell you, go ahead, make a routine for yourself. Remember to alternate structured direct teaching time with unstructured playtime, processing time. And in the course downloads, you will find a couple of sample schedules, or actually their routines. There's no time frame assigned to them. Keep in mind that younger kids need shorter times. Older kids or kids with developmental delays might be able to do with longer times. If they're very developmentally delayed, you probably want to keep that short too. But anyway, go make your routine. It can always be changed. If it's not working, we change it, but the structure's there to begin with. And then we change the structure as we need it. All right, well, I'll see you in the next lesson about structuring your space. Have a great day. Bye.